Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the chapter The Censors by Luisa Valenzuela from your textbook Issues That Matter. But before we begin, I'd like to make it clear that these lessons, including this one and the ones that I will upload in the coming days, these are not expert comprehensive lectures that you might find on other online tutoring channels or authorized platforms like ASAP. These are meant for my students and my students only. It's personalized that way. And I'll be uploading the lectures on those topics that I have not been able to complete in class. Only those topics. Like I said, these are not expert lectures, just the main stuff, so that when you prepare for your exams, it will be easy for you to read and comprehend the text. Alright, let's begin with our chapter, The Censors by Luisa Valenzuela. Luisa Valenzuela is an Argentinian writer, and therefore before we discuss the chapter, let's talk about some of the things that prompted her to write this particular story. The years 1976 to 1983 marks a very dark period in the history of the nation Argentina. After the death of their president, Juan Perón, in 1976, the military chief Jorge Rafael Videla planned and executed a coup which was really successful, and consequently Argentina fell into a dictatorial rule. Throughout these years, radical leftist groups waged a guerrilla war upon this government, and this is marked as a brutal civil war known as the Dirty War. That's what the visuals that you see on the screen are actually photographs taken during the Dirty War. Our story, The Censors, is a satirical work set during that era. You know what a satire is. A satirical work is one that uses humor to discuss a very serious matter, often attacking those who exhibit bad or silly behavior. In this particular story, the writer took the topic of censorship and uses comic elements to tell a story that will make us understand the actual conditions during that era, during the Dirty War. So this here is a map of Argentina. So you can see it's a very large country in the South American continent, otherwise known as the Latin American continent. You can see a lot of other Latin American nations as well. It's interesting to note that most of these countries went through dictatorial regimes during the 20th century, and often there were many communist parties and groups that fought guerrilla wars with them. A very famous example is Che Guevara. You all know Che Guevara. Also, please note that the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires, is also marked there because it's important. Because our writer Luisa Valenzuela lived most of her life in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. She did her university education in Buenos Aires, and for please also note Buenos Aires in this map. Okay, let's see a few more facts about the Dirty War because it will help you understand the context of the story. The army of Jorge Rafael Videla, it was called the Junta. It's spelled as Junta. We write that as Junta, but it is pronounced Junta. With the help of this army, he closed the National Congress of Argentina, which is their parliament. He imposed strict censorship laws. You saw what censorship is in the previous essays by Salman Rushdie and Toni Morrison. I gave you the notes as well. Videla also banned trade unions and brought all governmental systems under his control. But the most disturbing part of his regime was his enthusiasm in hunting down his enemies, who were all those people who spoke out against him, or anyone or everyone who protested against the government. He built detention camps to imprison them, and they were tortured there. Most of these people belonged to communist parties and people who were close allies of the guerrillas who fought the junta. More than 30,000 people disappeared during this period. But this war came to an end when the left-wing leader Raúl Alfonsín won the presidential election of 1983, because by that time Videla had withdrawn himself from being the supreme leader, and consequently the regime was weak. But after 1983, Videla and his companions were arrested and put in prison for the rest of his life for crimes committed against humanity, and recently he died. I think it was in 2012 that he died. Okay, this here is our writer Luisa Valenzuela. She was born in the year 1938 and she is 81 years old as of now. She's a very prominent figure in Latin American fiction, and she became famous for her writings on the dirty war. She was a journalist primarily, and she went to the University of Buenos Aires to graduate with a Bachelor of Arts degree. Her novel titled He Who Searches made her very famous because it was partially censored by the Argentinian government, and this made her very angry, and therefore she went to America and lived there instead. But even though she was in America, even though she was away from home, she fought the dictatorial regime through her fierce writings. So that's about our writer, and now let's delve right into our story. The Censors. The hero of our story is Juancito. We call him Juan. Again, it's spelled as Juan, but we pronounce it as Juan. Juan, he lives in Argentina under a dictatorial regime, but we don't know whether it is the Videla regime or not, but it is safe to assume that it is. At the very beginning, we see Juan writing a letter to his lady love, Mariana. This Mariana is the woman she loves, and he is writing a letter to Mariana. He had found out recently that she is safely living in Paris. So Argentina is not a safe place to live anymore because of this dictatorial rule, and Mariana probably left the country and she is now safely living in Paris. And he finds out from a trusted source that Mariana is living in Argentina, and he decides to write a letter to her, and he mails it also. But after posting the letter, he realizes that he made a mistake. Each and every letter posted in Argentina had to go through the censor bureau, and even though his letter was completely harmless, he was afraid that if the censors were to interpret some other meanings to his words, that might put his and Mariana's future in trouble. Therefore, he comes up with a brilliant plan that will solve this problem. He wanted to save himself and Mariana from being arrested for treason. He just wanted to intercept this letter and without raising any red flags. Therefore, he comes up with a very brilliant plan, and he would get a job as a censor, and this will help him to intercept his own letter and pass it on without raising a red flag. So he would go and work with the censor bureau, and he will slowly work up the ranks, and finally he will find out this letter from all the letters that are being processed in the censor bureau, and he will pass on this letter without any problems. That is his genius plan, and he gets this job. He finally gets a job, because getting a job as a censor was really easy, since each and every day thousands of letters are being written, and the government needs lots and lots of men to inspect these letters. So the censor bureau would select any men without proper investigation. They would take in any man who would apply. So he got this job very easily. Juan got the job very fast, and he joined them to execute his master plan. First, he was sent to work in section K. This is the first section that he was assigned to, and in section K, this was where the workers opened the letter envelopes very carefully to see if they contain any explosives. But one day, a worker tried to organize a strike, claiming that this was a very dangerous job, and because they are playing with explosives, and therefore they should be paid more money. Juan betrayed this man by reporting all his plans to the authorities, and this got him promoted to section J. And finally, because of this betrayal, the authorities was pleased in Juan, and they decided to promote him to section J. It is the next level. In section J, the workers unfolded the letters very carefully. They are done with the envelopes. Now they are dealing with the letters, the paper of the letters. They unfolded these letters very carefully to see if they have any poisonous powders in them. Juan was a very skillful worker, and therefore he was promoted to section E, which is the next level, where they read the letters and analyzed them very carefully. They analyzed these letters to find possible secret messages by the enemies of the government. Juan was very talented in this arena as well. Therefore, he cracked many secret messages, and this made him a very famous employee. He slowly began to love this job. He loved this job to an extent where the only thing he cared about was finding the secret messages. It got to an extent where the man tried to find anti-government messages even in simple innocent phrases like the weather is unsettled or the prices are sky high. So his faithfulness to the job got him promoted to the topmost section B. Finally, he's promoted to the topmost section B. In section B, he was alone, and all he did was inspect letters by putting them under a magnifying glass or an electronic microscope to find otherwise undetectable messages. He would touch and feel the whole paper to find anything unusual. He became very paranoid. He reached a point where he didn't care about his personal life anymore. And one day, accidentally, he reached his goal. He found the letter he had written for Mariana. He could pass the letter on to Mariana now. See, this is what he was waiting for all his life while he was working at the Censor Bureau. He just wanted to find the letter he had sent to Mariana and pass it on without alarming the authorities. So he reached his goal. He found the letter he had written for Mariana. Now he could pass on the letter. But by this time, he had become so faithful to his job. Therefore, he took action against himself. He knew that he was fooling the government by passing on this letter. Therefore, his patriotic duty did not allow him to do that. So he put his own letter in the basket of condemned letters. You see, a basket of condemned letters is where all the dangerous letters are put. Their senders will be found out by the government and they will be executed. So Huan also put his own letter in this basket, the basket of condemned letters, where the government would find out the senders of these letters and they would be executed for treason, for betraying the government, for trying to deceive the government. So Huan also, since he was very faithful to his job, since he was overwhelmed by his patriotic duty, he took action against himself, and consequently Huan was hanged in the morning. The people caught him and they executed him in the morning. And the writer calls Huan one more victim of his devotion to work. You see, when Huan joined the bureau, he didn't care about the ideology or the politics of the Censor Bureau. We may even say that he was a victim of these censorship laws, since he couldn't freely write what he wanted without fear. But as he grew closer to the power structures, he lost his sanity. He began to enjoy the power and couldn't see the important things in his life anymore. Ultimately, he sacrificed himself to protect the system that was controlling him. Now the themes. The story tells you how individuals and society are affected by a repressive government. We see how it turns people against people. The censors working at the bureau worked hard to trap their fellow citizens. That's how people are turning against people. And it also turned individuals against themselves, like Huan betraying himself. The story is all about the psychological changes in an individual under authoritarianism. It makes you lose sight of what's important in life, like Huan forgetting his love for Mariana. This is the irony of the story. Huan himself destroyed the one thing, his and Mariana's future. This is the one thing he destroyed, his and Mariana's future, because of the job that he got in to protect that future. See, the only thing that he wanted was for him and Mariana to be safe. That is the reason that he got this job in the first place. But this job itself destroyed their future. So that's the irony of the story. He himself allowed the job to get into his mind, to destroy his sanity and therefore destroy his life. That is the irony of the story. There is also the theme of self-censorship. See, self-censorship is when you yourself censor your ideas in order to escape persecution. Many people were afraid of the government, therefore they censored themselves even when they were writing intimate letters to their loved ones. You saw how Huan was paranoid and found anti-government messages in even simple phrases like the weather is unsettled and the prices are too high. See, therefore the common people were so afraid that they would censor themselves so that nothing bad against them would be found by the Censor Bureau. So the writer herself claims that she left Argentina because she didn't want to fall into self-censorship. This shows how the personal lives of millions of people were affected by the censorship laws. So that's all about this chapter. I know it's not everything, but just doing these lessons videos just so that it will be helpful for you to write your exams. Before you going to write your exams, please watch this video, and I'm sure that it will help you to write the exams. I'll upload another video of another chapter soon. Thank you.